sitting down in the woods. He wouldn't leave it even if he could. 'Cause life is good, yeah!
Hickok45, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from the beautiful state of Tennessee again this week. Imagine that, in the same state as I was last week. And here I am again to blab about firearms related issues. I guess. Who knows? Maybe we'll do cigar reviews. Maybe we'll talk about knives. I don't know. Every time I think I don't have really much to talk about, John tells me to get out there in the reloading room and do something. You know, people want to hear something, you know, or at least a few people do. So anyway, I'm going to do it. You know what? I keep a pad, of course, in my car. Kind of a to-do list of various things, and that's just how I operate every day on my drive, my commute. And I try to reserve a page towards the end of the week for the radio show, quote unquote. You know, I mean, ideas pop to my mind. And you know what? I had nothing this week. There is nothing on that sheet of paper. I admit I've been very, very busy. We're involved in exams, making out exams, giving exams, grading exams, and I have a perfectly good reason not to do it this week, and really thought I wouldn't. And I don't know, here I am out in the reloading room, and I'm just going to, we'll see, if something comes to mind, you know, for 10 minutes, 12, whatever, 15, I'll post you up some rambling, okay? I know there are a few people who just feel like they have to have their dose of rambling. And I'm not going to ramble too much because, you know, we can do this just whenever I'm in the mood or have something to say, whether it's once every 2 weeks or once a month or twice a week, and it's really what I need to do. And probably get away from the once a week kind of thing. But as Tom Gresham pointed out when I was being interviewed by him, and I mentioned something about doing this, he said something about how, you know, that it sits there every week. You're like him. Now with him, he has a real radio show, and he has to be. That's of course his big gig, and so he has to have his guests lined up for what he does and everything. So I know it's like having cows to milk. I remember I had an uncle who had a whole bunch of cows, and when they'd come to visit, it didn't matter what was going on. They had to head on back at whatever, 4, 5 o'clock, milk the cows, and the next morning too. I don't think he went on a vacation, you know, but about once every 5 years when he could get some relative to milk his cows. But so I don't want it to become that sort of thing. I will not enjoy it if I do that. So anyway, I thought I'll come on out here. Had been in the reloading room for 3 days, and see if I can think of something that might be of interest to you on this fine weekend. So we'll just see what I might have to say. I can't even tell you what is going to be on the show because I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. One thing I can talk about, it's fresh in my mind. We ended the week at work with a kind of retirement party of a colleague of mine. And you may have experienced this before, you know, had a colleague retire or leave that you'd worked with a long time in whatever endeavor you're involved in. And that's kind of what happened this week with me. A fellow that was at the location where I teach 21 years ago when I started there. He had been there a couple of years. And just prince of a fellow, you know, one of those that doesn't get any better, a little bit older than I am, and retired military. And when he got out of the military, he went, you know, into education and various areas, and just as good as gold. Kids love him to death. Has helped more people than any 5 people, you know, you could almost name at random. Just a fine fellow. And we had a little retirement party and showed some pictures from the various involvements and things he had done there, and the kids he had, you know, been with doing different things. Just really a nice display and trip back down memory lane of younger years, his military years, and everything else, and all of his kids and grandkids, and students returned, were there for the party. That was great because a lot of them had been in my class, and at a time when all of us were involved in the same building, involved in the same projects and everything. So it was really, really neat. It's one of the advantages of being older. I know a lot of younger folks think of me as a really old guy, and I have been around a while. It's really neat, though, in so many ways. It's like everything. There's an advantage to literally everything, virtually everything. And having lived through a lot of years, a lot of decades, makes life pretty interesting when you have taught someone's father who is sitting in your class. That's pretty neat. And that has happened to me several times. I haven't spent my entire career teaching. I took 11 years off and did some other things. But so I have, I go way back into the 70s teaching, though, my first incarnation as a teacher. And I guess I've had 5 or 6 students now in middle school in my class whose fathers I have taught. And that's pretty interesting. That really is. When you have parents' night and there they are, 20, 30 years later, big as life. I had one experience with that where I had 2 offspring of fathers I had taught back in the 70s. They were in my class, just a couple, 3 years ago, and they were in the same period, the same section at the end of the day, as it happens. And we have this parents' night where parents come and go through their child's schedule, and you do like a 7-8 minute kind of dog and pony show and talk to the parents, let them know what you do in the course, and let them get to know you and that sort of thing. And of course it's nice because it's a couple of weeks into school. That way by the time they come around and sit in my class, it's too late for them to pull their child out of school after they see me, and what a fool I am to say it's just too late. They can't pull them out. But but anyway, I had the experience of having both fathers whom I had taught way back in the 70s sitting in my class that night. It was pretty neat. Sitting beside each other, cutting up a little bit, and I was razzing them, giving them a hard time. And I mean, it was, that was just pretty cool. It was cool experiencing that. And of course I couldn't have experienced that had I been hit by a truck when I was 47 or 53 or something. I mean, you've got to live through some decades, some years, in order to have that kind of experience. And then also other things have to fall into place. You have to be in the same place or in the same city or the same profession, even though I got out of it for 11 years. Things just have to fall into place for that sort of thing to happen. Not a lot of people have that experience. I mean, I've talked to some old ladies who have been teaching their whole lives and talk about teaching the grandkids of, students they've had and all that sort of thing. But I just never did picture that ever happening to me. And most people move around, change jobs, and how it is today. So that kind of thing just doesn't happen as often, I don't think. So it was pretty neat, and it was really neat seeing all those kids back and adults, to attend the retirement party for this other colleague. So anyway, that was a special, great guy. You really in your life, you don't get to know maybe more than a handful of people that you just would trust your life to. That they're just so special. You you can count on for anything. You do anything for them. It's just not that many. And anyway, this guy's one of them. So that's something worthy of talking about, I think. Something else I really should talk about a little bit as I stand here in the reloading room looking around. I guess I beg off on a lot of reloading questions. I just really can't become the reloading guru and I do cut people off kind of short, I guess, on answering questions about reloading and about loads and all that kind of thing. I mean, that would be an entire channel to to itself that somebody could devote his life to, you know. And then, of course, the liability issues and all that. And it's also one of those things you kind of need to dig into it yourself. You really do. But let me talk about some, I talked about some things in some of the few videos I've done on reloading. But if you're not a reloader and you're contemplating doing that sometime, or maybe you do it, just let me see if I can meander around here. A few basic things. One thing that's really basic, whatever press you get, make sure it's bolted down so solidly that you could kick it as hard as you can and it's not going to shake. You know, don't deal with you know, a tool that's not solidly, you know, fastened down. It's just that simple, because you're going to be putting some pressure on it, like a lot of pressure at times, and for weeks, months, years. So do that. And I know another question is, of course, should I get a progressive or a single stage press and all that? The logical approach to that is that, well, like I did back in the early 70s, I got a single stage press. Of course, at that point, you didn't have as many choices with progressive reloaders at all. They were like really expensive, and they were something you just didn't see. And but now, you know, a lot of people start out with a progressive press, and it's not something that you should just automatically dismiss because you're new at it. It really is not. You have all the same principles involved, whether you're doing one case at a time or you're doing several at a time. So just something to think about. If you're a meticulous person and you know you're going to be careful, just read up on it. You might want to just go ahead and start with a progressive if you are going to shoot very much. I mean, it really is the way to go for pistol rounds, especially. If you're going to shoot many of them, you know, it's just the way to go. You know, no way around that. And of course, I'm a Dillon person. I really like Dillon, and about anybody who has had a Dillon really likes Dillon. If that tells you anything. What else about it? The things that I think have served me well through the years, and just learning to shoot, that I probably have mentioned before. One is getting a bullet weight that I like and sticking with it. And I don't do a lot of experimenting with different loads and different bullets given caliber, say 9mm, for example. I'm looking at this 9mm press that has been fastened there. I guess I've been reloading 9mm on that press for almost 20 years. Well, maybe it has been 20 years. I'm shooting the same load, the same bullet, loading the same bullet, the same powder charge that I established back in 20 years ago. So I just don't switch around. Same for the 45 ACP. Those are a couple of rounds, hand loads that I have shot, who knows, untold thousands of. And same load, same bullet, 230 grain bullet, whether it's cast or full metal jacket. And with 9mm, it's 147 grain bullet, full metal jacket. That's just what I load. That's what I shoot. As I mentioned in videos, I prefer heavier bullets. And then I just shoot it. My point of impact has not changed in 20 years. If I'm constantly changing bullet weights or changing loads, I'm affecting my point of impact, elevation wise at least, and constantly, just dicking around with things. It just doesn't make sense. Never made sense to me. Get something that works is what I do, and stick with it. And then the biggest variable is the shooter, as I've mentioned many times. Learning to shoot a handgun, especially, is hard enough. You don't need any other variables. You need to know what the bullet's going to do, what it's going to feel like, where it's going. And then you work on the other stuff, and we all know that's tough. Keeping from flinching and jerking a trigger and just all that. You don't need a variety of different bullets and loads to mess with your mind. You just need to get a load. This is my opinion. Get one and stick with it as much as possible. Now, that said, sometimes you end up with different firearms that you have to be careful with. For example, I've got a trap door, so I have to be careful with 45-70 loads. I can't shoot the same. I might be able to. I don't know. I don't want to chance it because I shoot a pretty hot load in 45-70. So the rounds I shoot in my Marlins and my Browning 1886, I really shouldn't shoot in that trap door. You know, they were not designed for those hot loads. So it'd be a little careful there. Same with 45 Colt. You know, so what I'm saying is sometimes I'll have two different loads of powder, but I try to stick with the same bullet so I'm not having to mess around with changing the seating die, the bullet seating die, which is kind of ticklish at times, tricky. So once I get that set, it takes an act of Congress for me to change that. Get that bullet seated and crimped just right. I don't want to mess with that. So that's another reason to get a bullet you like and stick with it. You know, then you don't have to keep readjusting dies and end up with problems. 45 Colt, I was going to say the same thing. The old Colt Single Action Army that you know I love. They're not designed for Magnum rounds in 45 Colt, of course, but there's really no reason a 45 Colt cartridge can't be uploaded just like a 44 Magnum if you have a gun that will handle it. And of course there aren't many of the old guns that will, but there are new ones from Ruger handguns, and then of course the Marlin 94, which I have, 45 Colt. I mean, that's a poor man's 45-70. You could really load up a 45 Colt cartridge for that. And as I've explained in some of the videos I've done, I do load some hot loads for that Marlin in 45 Colt. I keep them in boxes. You don't see piles of them unless I've dumped them out of the boxes or something. But I keep those in boxes that are labeled, and I use nickel-plated cases. Just I take 2 or 3 steps there just to make sure it's clear to my senile mind that those are the hot ones. I don't want to put those in a Colt Single Action Army. So I just keep them separate in a different case, which is odd. A 45 Colt. I don't really like 45 Colt in a nickel case. I mean, did cowboys use nickel cases back in 1880? I don't think so. Maybe. I haven't really researched that, but I just think of brass, and so it's a little odd. I find it a little bit distasteful loading 45 Colt, that vintage cartridge from 1873, in a nickel case, like you'd load a 357 Magnum or something. But I do it anyway, and it doesn't matter because I'm kind of jumping into the modern era with that 45 Colt load, in a Ruger or in a Marlin. So that's one case or a couple where I do use different loads, but by and large I shoot one load for the most part. 45 ACP, one load. 9mm, 40, 10mm. What else does I look around? All the pistol cartridges I load, I stick with a 357 Magnum. One load. I'm in the process of changing that. I'm going to, I think, Unique powder, and back to Unique. I had some other powder I got real cheap about 10 years ago. It lasted forever, so I'm going back to Unique with that, I think. But I'll start loading those up, and I won't change that. I will never probably ever change that load again. I'm not sure why exactly I did it when I did, but I will never change that. I'm sure as long as I'm on this planet, I'll stick with that load. And that's an important point, I think. Get a load that works and stick with it. It's the best advice I can give if you want to be a good shot. If you want to know what your cartridge is going to be doing, just get a load that works. You like the recoil characteristics of it. I use that phrase a lot, I guess. And heavy bullets, to me, give you a pleasant recoil experience, shall we say. You get a push instead of a really hard snap, generally speaking. So that's kind of the way I operate on that. What else was I going to? Oh yeah, another factor there, an advantage of getting around that you like and stick with it, the bullet weight and all that, and the load. Another thing to think about, a very important thing to think about if you're a concealed permit carrier or a hunter or whatever, if you plan to use that same cartridge to hunt quite a lot, or you're going to carry that particular caliber, that gun, that's all the more reason to also think about what's available as carry ammo. And, just factor all that in, which is I have done. There will always be 180 grain bullets for the 40 or for the 10 millimeter. That's one of the most popular bullets, and it's widely available in Full Metal Jacket for practice ammo also. So that all works out well. I load 180 grain bullets to factory specs basically, and so when I'm shooting and plinking and blowing up cinder blocks, whatever I'm doing with a 10 or a 40, it's the same feel as it is if I came in here and got a box of Gold Dot or the Winchester PDX-1 or whatever. I'm not going to be able to tell the difference. Point of aim, point of impact, it's all the same. So how's that for killing two birds with one stone? A lot of playing around and shooting and target shooting and stuff, and it's going to be the exact same feel of the rounds that I carry to protect my life. Same with 9 millimeter. I carry 147 grain ammo in the Glock 26 or 19, whatever I might be carrying. Same for 45, 230 grain bullets. I don't notice any difference in the feel. So I try to approximate the factory round when I choose a load and work it up, which I've done with most of my popular calibers years ago. So very, very important factors to me. To me, it just makes good sense. And of course, one of the reasons I even talk about that is that your point of impact does change more dramatically with some loads than others. Now, with some things, there's not that much difference depending on how close you are to the target and everything. It's just a story I know I've told before, the Glazer, I guess, safety slug, how 10 Outdoors 9 was out. It was 20 years ago or more, trying out some 357 or 38 Special, one of their Glazer safety slugs in a water jug with I believe it was a 6-inch 357 Magnum. He was firing at him and took his time and missed. Took his time, missed again. Got closer, took his time, missed again. It wasn't bad shooting or aiming. It was going way below that jug. At whatever 15 or 20 yards, and the point of impact had changed dramatically because of that little light, really screaming fast bullet. Now that's an exaggerated example, but a lighter, faster bullet will get out that barrel so fast that it will generally impact lower. Now that's it, just moderate, fairly close ranges. But if you get out across the hill at 50 and 60 and 70 yards, then some of the dynamics actually change. A bullet that normally would have dropped because it was light, if it is a lot hotter, it might actually hit higher or the same place. So you get a lot of weird things there you have to think about with the physics. The bullet getting out the barrel fast tends to make it print lower at 20 yards or moderate ranges. Because it's not as affected by the recoil. If you looked at somebody shooting a handgun in slow motion, you're going to see the hand, of course, come up, the gun come up. And now if the bullet gets out the barrel before there's any movement at all, it's going to impact one place. You shoot a really slower bullet, common sense would make you think it's going to hit lower, but it's slower getting out the barrel, so it's affected by the upward motion of the barrel. More, so it will tend to go a little higher. So it just depends whether it's a revolver or an auto loader, and then how much difference in weight and power you're talking about. That's why you just have to get a load that you think you'll like, and then experiment with it and see how it hits in terms of point of impact. Maybe you need to change the sights on your gun even. I don't know, to get the way you want. But once you do, stick with it. That's words of wisdom from Hickok45. I will stand by those words. Well, here I go. I guess I may end up with an actual show to post here. I just get the rambling, and before you know it, I've eaten up some time, haven't I? Oh, one thing I guess I'll talk a little bit about is, again, you loyal listeners and viewers who actually click on these crazy radio shows. You deserve to know a little bit of inside information here that I might not reveal otherwise. And of course, it's not a big revelation because you probably saw it in the vlog that I did a few days ago, and that is the Marlin 4570 stainless gun, the STP. It's a Marlin 1895 STP. It's called. No, it's not oil treatment. It's the model of the firearm. 16, I believe, and a quarter-inch barrel, barely over 16 inches, and it looks it. It looks it. Really a cool firearm. Has the full-length mag tube. Goes up to the right up to the edge of the muzzle almost. So it holds 5 rounds. Holds an extra round, one over what the guide gun holds. It just holds 4 rounds in the magazine. Yet it's a longer gun. It's a bigger gun. So kind of interesting. But this is quite an interesting piece. I've shot it maybe 15 times. Shoots right on, and it is so small. It's not even a yard long. I think it's 34 inches and something, I read, and it is a 4570. It is a little tank, quite a little tank. Very interesting firearm. I was just taken with it. I just really was. It was not that familiar with it. I guess I had been to the Marlin website, but they don't have anything on there about them. This one just got past my radar. They came out a couple, 3 years ago, and just 500 of them produced. So they're just not out there very much. But I noticed one the other day, fondled it a little bit, and just could not resist it. I had to go back and make it my own because, I'm a 4570 aficionado to some extent. Really a fun round to load and shoot. But it is quite a booger, I tell you what. To me, really, it's a more practical guide gun than the guide gun I have. Now that thing is really sweet. It has, I think, a 18-inch or 19-inch barrel. Itself, it's a small, Marlin 1895. It's short, for a rifle. But this thing is down just barely to the legal limit, and it shoots great. Shoots just fine. It has the laminated stock. It's stainless. I don't mind laminated stock. If it's going to be a stainless gun, everything, it's kind of, again, moves it into a different era. So that's fine. I prefer my lever guns to be good old blue and pretty wood, or at least real wood, generally speaking. But these, I have to admit, are kind of attractive in kind of a modern sort of way. It's like a Glock or something, or a stainless Smith & Wesson or something. Just a very, very interesting firearm. Has high-vis sights. And boy, they jump out at you. Anyway, good bear gun, and I'm looking forward to shooting it. I'm gonna have to get speaking of reloading, get the 4570 press going here before too much longer. But really a sweet firearm. Well, we better get to the gun action of the week, I guess, since we're doing this crazy show. And many of you got it right, either through my clues or, I don't know, just circumstances. You figured out last week that the firearm was that sweet Browning high power. Beautiful gun, isn't it? We just posted the close-up of the high power here, today, I guess, or yesterday. So, very, very appealing firearm. Shoots very well. It's the whole time I had that, it did not jam one time. So I've gotten several messages from people from Australia talking about how that's been their military's firearm for 50 years, whatever. It still is. Can't argue with a high power, I guess. Nice gun and reliable. I guess John Browning designed it, so couldn't be too bad, could it? But anyway, that was last week's gun. Okay, get ready for this week's. Oh gosh, what can I say about this one? Well, let's just hear it. we'll do everything we're possibly going to do with it here. Can't really cock it very well. I'll let that be a clue, maybe. Yes, I can. Okay. There we go. I can cock it with some difficulty. So I'm pulling the trigger. Okay. You should be able to tell from that listing, you know, what finishes on the gun and length of barrel and all that, right? So this will be a little easier for folks who are who have been around and seen most of the videos, if not all of them. Okay, gun has not made a lot of appearances, but it's one of my favorites. Okay, so anyway, hope you can come close on that one. So I better be wrapping this thing up. I have lots of exams to grade. I have a big stack I need to get back to, and they are awaiting my return. So you guys have a great week. I hope you get a chance to shoot. Be really careful. Represent us well, and we'll talk to you all later. Hickok45 is signing off. You've been listening to the Hickok45 radio show. See you on the range.